Lesson 2-5, solving equations involving an absolute value. So when we have an equation that has an absolute value, your goal is to define the upper and the lower range that the value must fall. So if you had a number line, the lowest range may be -3 and the highest range may be 3, so you know the value falls somewhere in between here. You want to use the given value to replace the variable when necessary. So just like anything in the past, if it says d equals 4, you want to replace d with 4 throughout the entire equation. When you're solving equations that involve an absolute value, there's two cases that you need to consider. The first one being that the expression that's inside the absolute value symbol, which typically looks like this, just around numbers, is positive, or the expression inside the absolute value symbol is negative. So that's going to be one of two things. So for any real numbers, a and b, if the absolute value a equals the absolute value b, then a equals b or a equals -b. And so that's where you get your minimum and your maximum values. So let's take a look at this example. We have 5 plus x equals 17. So you would rewrite it for each case. So we could have 5f equals 17 or f5 equals -17. Those are our two options. So if we solved, x could be 12 because you subtracted 5, or f could be -22. So then if you graphed those, you would be able to show that it would be 12 and 22. And so sometimes you might see this written as graph the solution set. And what that means is they just want you to graph it out to 12. And then they want you to graph it to -22. And so if you graphed those points, your -22 would be here and your 12 would be here, and that would be all that they need. Now for this next example, you see that it has b minus 1 equals -3. But what that means is that the distance between b and 1 is -3. Well, we can't have a negative distance. The distance has to be a positive value. There has to be some value in between there. So since the distance is negative, the solution for this would be an empty set. And so the set would just be empty. So that would be your answer. Pause the video to try a few examples on your own. The first example there says the absolute value of y plus 2 equals 4. So we would have y plus 2 equals 4, or y plus 2 equals -4. And so you would solve, and you would have y equals 2, since you subtracted 2 from both sides, or y equals -6, since you subtracted 2. So then your answer would just be -6, 2, because you want to put it in a set, a solution set. The next example, the absolute value of 3n minus 4 equals -1. Again, they're trying to tell us that the distance between 3n and 4 is -1. We cannot have a -1 distance, so our solution set is 0. We're also going to see some word problems with absolute values in equations. So in this example, you would actually have to write the equation and then solve. So ice cream should be stored at 5 degrees with an allowance of 5 degrees. Write and solve. So if we know that the temperature has to equal 5 degrees, we have the T. We have T equals 5 degrees, but they're giving us an allowance. So it can be 5 degrees above or 5 degrees below. So we're just going to say the absolute value of that temperature. 5 degrees above, 5 degrees below. So we solve. T minus 5 equals 5. So T would equal 10. Or T minus 5 equals -5. So T would equal 0. So our solution set would be 0, 10. So as long as the temperature is anywhere between 0 and 10, then the ice cream would be stored at a safe temperature. When writing equations for absolute values, it can get a little tricky. You want to find the point that is in the middle of the two numbers. So for this example, we have 9 and 14. Number that's in the middle would be 11.5. The distance from 9 to 11.5 is 2.5. The distance from 14 to 11.5 is 2.5. So now we can begin writing our equation. You set your variable as x minus the middle point number, which is 11.5 in this case, equals the distance from our point to our middle point, which we said was 2.5. And then you place your absolute value bars around your variable and your distance. Pause the video to try the example below. Write an equation involving absolute value for the graph. So we first need to find the middle point. So we have 17 and 27. So it looks like our middle point would be here at 22. So we set our variable x minus the 22 equals the distance it takes to get there. So our distance from here is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The distance from 27 is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it would equal 5, and I include my absolute values. Pause the video to complete the lesson review. Make sure you show me your lesson review with your notes to verify that you've watched this video.